Coming to paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, Godbreaker. The man who rules the world takes on the Asgardian god of thunder in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Pre-order your copy of John Haynes, Godbreaker at online booksellers today. A black man from Stapleton, New York, was shot to death while vacationing in Chile. And in this tragic story, Eric Eugene Garvin, a seasoned traveler, wound up being shot and killed during a robbery after he had gone out for some dinner and was headed back to the Airbnb he was renting in downtown Santiago. Now, as Eric Eugene Garvin had left the restaurant and was walking the half mile back to the Airbnb he was renting in downtown Santiago, it is alleged that he was ambushed by several individuals, shot multiple times, and left for dead. And what's really troubling is that no one knew where this man was until his friend he was traveling with didn't meet him to take another flight out of Chile to head to Argentina. And that's when police went and did an investigation to try to find out what happened to Eric Eugene Garvin, and he wasn't found until a week later when they found his body in the morgue. Now, this whole incident is one that should give every black male traveler pause, because it shows the dangers of what can happen to a black man who takes a trip to a foreign country. Now, Eric Eugene Garvin was not a passport bro. No, he was the son of a retired Air Force colonel and a mother who was a prominent Staten Island activist who worked to raise voter awareness in the black community. So he was a young, educated, professional black man who came from a functional two-parent household. And as this young brother was going out to travel across the globe, he really wasn't thinking critically about the dangers he was in when he was in Santiago, Chile. Now, Eric Eugene Garvin went out to the country of Chile to see the sights, and sadly, he wasn't aware of much of the danger going on around him. Because in many of these foreign countries, once a black man gets off a plane, he has a target on his back, and he has many people out here watching him. And if he doesn't keep his head on a swivel, that guy can wind up becoming targeted by many of the criminals inside of a country like Chile. And in those countries, because law enforcement is kind of corrupt, it can be a long time before they even find out what happened to a brother out here. So if he doesn't have his head on a swivel, he can wind up, sadly, like what happened to Eric Eugene Garvin, where he's out here traveling in this country, and as he's traveling in this country, he's not aware of these predators who are looking to prey on him. Now, I believe Eric Eugene Garvin made a major mistake when he went out to dinner alone. And when he went out to dinner alone, he took for granted that he was in downtown Chile, and he thought because he was in a downtown area, he would be safe. That was a major mistake that Eric Garvin made, I believe, that sadly led to him winding up dead, because he thought, oh, I'm in downtown, there's possibly plenty of police, I should be very safe. No, even as a person who lives here in New York City, I can tell you there's areas even here in New York that I would avoid in any time, because there are lots of dangers lurking in those areas. And unless you are a resident of that area, you're not going to know who those predators are or who or how to avoid them. And as Eric Eugene Garvin made the mistake of thinking that walking a half mile in downtown Chile would be the same as walking down a half mile in Midtown Manhattan, because walking a half mile in Manhattan, that's just about 10 blocks, And walking 10 blocks in Midtown Manhattan from someplace like 50th Street to 60th Street, that would be pretty safe if you stayed on the dividing line like 5th Avenue. But if you were to go to one of the seedier avenues like 9th or 10th or 11th Avenues, that could be a trip that could possibly cost you your life, because there are a lot of very dangerous predators on avenues like 8th Avenue, 9th Avenue, 10th Avenue, or 11th Avenue, in areas like Hell's Kitchen. And if you don't know how to move in those areas, you can easily wind up with a target on your back that leads to somebody looking to take a shot at you. And again, this is something Eric Garvin, even though he was a seasoned traveler, was not really thinking about. He thought he was safe in downtown Santiago, Chile, but he didn't really understand that unless you've got people in that area looking out for you, you're not safe at all, because people basically saw you coming off the plane. People saw you walking down the street, and they were waiting for an opportunity for you to be by yourself in one of the darker areas, and that's when they were waiting to go out here and ambush you, because they know that you only know one way to move in that street, and they know how to block that area of the street off in order to get at you. Now, Eric Garvin probably thought if he left his wallet, he would, and his passport at the Airbnb, it would be able to keep him safe. But the whole thing was, these people possibly saw him spending money as he was on his trip, and as they saw him spending money on his trip, they saw a guy they could go out here and possibly get a few pesos from at the end of the day, and they were looking to go get that money. And after they got that money, they looked to make sure that this guy wouldn't be able to go to the police to make any sort of statement about what they've done. And that's how he wound up getting shot multiple times and losing his life. Now, this whole story, again, is very sad and tragic to hear, and it basically proves that these are not isolated incidents, because when I look at what happened to Eric Eugene Garvin, it comes right after one of these passport bros went overseas and went to one of these countries, got involved with one of these women, and one of these women set him up for a robbery. They put this on YouTube. And then we have this tragic story of Bakari Henderson back from 2018, where he went to a bar in Greece, and he went and made the innocent gesture to take a picture with a waitress, a selfie, and this led to him being beaten to death. And it really shows that there are a lot of dangers as related to black men traveling if they don't have their head on a swivel. Now, I have no problems with black men going out here traveling, because if you want to go out here and travel, you go do your own thing, but you have to keep your head on a swivel inside of these countries, because there's a lot of dangers in these countries from a lot of really desperate people, because a lot of people in these countries, like Santiago, Chile, a lot of these people are very poor, and when they see a black man by himself out here spending money, they see him as an easy target because they know that that black man is a second-class citizen in America, and that if something happens to that black man, law enforcement won't be too eager to go out here and investigate. And that's sadly what happened here in the case of this young brother, Eric Eugene Garvin, as he was traveling in this country, because after Eric Eugene Garvin was ambushed and robbed and murdered, no one knew what happened to him for over a week. And that was all due to the fact that his friend and his parents were actively looking for him. In the case of any other black man, if he had no family knowing where he was going, this guy basically would have disappeared and would have possibly been buried in Potter's Field and forgotten about. This is something that could happen to a black man who goes out here and again is a seasoned traveler, And it should give every black person pause about some of the dangers of going out to travel. And look out for yourself when you're out here traveling. Let people know where you're going. Always keep in touch with people, because again, in these countries, a lot of times law enforcement isn't going to be too eager to go out here and help a black man if something happens to him in these countries. Now, this whole case really made me think about these passport bros. Now, your Eric Eugene Garvin was not a passport bro. He was a seasoned traveler looking to go out here and see the sights. But he was, and with even all the training that he possibly got from his father as related to knowing how to move, he was still vulnerable and susceptible to predators. And when I think about the passport bros and how many of these men are just not thinking critically, they could easily wind up in the same situation as Eric Eugene Garvin. And many of the passport bros do not have any of the critical thinking I believe Eric Eugene Garvin had. No, many of these males are just caught up in their feelings, and as they're caught up in their feelings about black women, they're not thinking critically about their health and their safety in these countries. And many of these guys could possibly, like the one I had heard about a couple of weeks ago, be set up for a tragic situation. And because these guys possibly wouldn't have anybody looking out for them, we would possibly never hear about these guys again. That is the whole scary part about this type of situation that Eric Eugene Garvin ran into, because when I look at his situation, I can easily see Austin Holloman winding up in the exact same situation and possibly becoming a faster target than Eric Eugene Garvin, a seasoned traveler, because with the thirsty and goofy way your Austin Holloman was acting, he could also be preyed on. And I wonder if something sadly, tragically were to happen like this, I wonder if many of those same passport bros who say that they support him would be out here looking to go out here and give his family any sort of help. Would these individuals be looking to pay for this man getting his body shipped back from a country if something happened to him? Would these individuals be looking to pay his bail, or would they even be looking to help, in the most extreme case, pay his funeral expenses? These are critical questions I would ask many of these so-called passport bros who want to sit there and get into their feelings about traveling to go pursue these so-called relationships with foreign women. A lot of these guys, they get in their feelings and want to argue about this subject, but when a tragedy like what happened to Eric Eugene Garvin happens, we don't hear these individuals talking about any of the dangers in these countries in an objective fashion. No, we hear them trying to deny these dangers and call them isolated incidents. Well, I don't see them as isolated incidents. I don't see what happened to Bakari Henderson in 2018 as an isolated incident. I don't see what happened to that passport bro where he got robbed of all of his belongings as an isolated incident. I don't see what happened here to Eric Eugene Garvin as an isolated incident. No, I see them as a reason for a black man who is traveling to keep his head on a swivel and keep a critical eye out, because when you go to these countries, you have to understand that you are on your own behind enemy lines, and not everybody smiling in your face is your friend, because many of these people saw you coming off the plane all by yourself, and as they saw you coming off this plane all by yourself, they saw a mark that they were looking to take advantage of, and they saw a mark they could easily go out here and get some money out of. And that's what they sadly saw with Eric Eugene Garvin in Santiago, Chile. As he was out here vacationing and seeing the sights, people saw a mark they wanted to take, and as he went out to dinner, thought he could walk down 5 or 10 blocks like he did in a place like New York, because they said he had a very good job for the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice. I mean, that's a very good job. And fortunately, even with his connections, even with a father, he was susceptible to these dangers in these countries. And that's even with all the experience he has. But you'll have individuals like the Passport Bros wanting to dismiss what happened in this tragic incident and won't want to learn any lessons as related to this. No, you'll have these men looking to dismiss this whole situation, and they won't want to think about the dangers that this man was in, thinking, oh, this won't happen to me, when this can happen to anyone. And that's why you have to take a minute to really think about things before you go to these countries, because again, you are on your own and you're behind enemy lines, and that's something every black man has to think about when he's going overseas, because nobody's saying that, black man, you can't go out here and travel, but you have to travel and think critically when you go out here, because if you go out here in your feelings like Austin Holloman, you go out here caught up in gender war rhetoric, and you run into a situation like Eric Garvin, chances are you won't be flying to the next country. Chances are you may possibly wind up getting carried out in a body bag, because again, people in these countries, when it comes down to black men, they see them as an easy mark, because they see a black man in a country as somebody who has no sort of recourse, because it took 5 years for Bakari Henderson's parents to finally get justice, and it may take as long for Eric Garvin's parents to get justice, because they don't even know who killed their son. And that is the scariest part of this, because even with the United States State Department looking into helping to look what's going on in the case, we may never know who was a part of the mob that murdered Eric Garvin and took the life of this successful brother who was just looking to travel and see the sights, and sadly wound up seeing his way back inside of a body bag. Now, if you want to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to pick up some of my SJS Direct fantasy fiction or my nonfiction books and men's issues like Stop Simpin' and The Man Crisis, you can find all those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find all of those books at other online booksellers like Smashwords, Barnes & Noble, the iBookstore, and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Spellbound, A Darker Shade of Black. Get your copy today at your favorite online